as a clinical lab scientist. So I have to submit those, fulfillment of those courses to the California Department of Public Health, and I will do that in December. And then I get a chance to get a trainee license as a CLS. And then I have to apply to a 1 year rotation program. So there are four in the Bay Area, and then there's also in San Diego as well, UCSD and Scripps.
Okay.
There's only a limited amount of options that I would, that I take those 1 year CLS because they have to be by the they have to be approved by the California Department of Public Health. And
Oh, I see.
so, yeah, some of them are neutral, so they don't pay you and you don't pay either. Some of them you have to pay to enroll into the program. Some of them it's like a job, so they pay you. And then there are general CLS programs, and then there are specialty programs as well, depending on the license that the person has. So the license
Yeah.
I'll get is for immunohematology. So for that license will help me to train for 1 year, but it's for immunohematology. So there are some programs that are for immunohematology only, and there are some that are for other specialties too. There's like microbiology, chemist. There's I think histology. There's like 10 different specialties. So I'm thinking of one here in the Bay Area with Sutter Health, which is
Oh,
kind of like Sharp Hospital, but it's only in the Bay Area. It's like a hospital branch. So they have an immunohematology specialty program. So this one is like you apply, and it's like you join their hospital, and they do give you a stipend. So they pay you, and you have to have a specialty license in immunohematology or microbiology. So one of those two. They don't do the general one. So where the general means if anyone else who just has a general license or have another specialty, they can join. Otherwise, they have to either have one of those two. So that's kind of my first option that I'm looking for. But if it doesn't go well with them, then I'll go for a general 1 year cycle. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's great. Let me ask you a couple questions. So, first of all, thank you for joining Cafecito
yeah,
Chats. Welcome to
yeah,
Cafecito Chats.
yeah,
Today's topic is how to brag without bragging, right? Yeah, there you go. How to
yeah,
brag without bragging. And it kind of goes really well with what you started saying that, you're following and you're getting certifications. And over the last couple episodes, we've heard and we know that you work at FedEx.
yeah,
FedEx is one
yeah.
of those
FedEx.
shipping companies, right? So you're taking certifications. Your major has been heavily focused, from what I remember, when you were in UCSD. It was more focused on bioengineering, biotechnology. So
Yeah,
I always thought it was a little interesting that you went over to work with FedEx, which is it's nothing against it, right? It's a great
yeah,
company, to be honest with
yeah.
you. And then you got a managerial position, but now you're saying that you're pursuing another certification and another effort to, from what I see and hear, to go back into bioengineering and or the medical field. So bragging without bragging. How do you want to, and why are you pursuing another certification? Do you want to change jobs? Is that something that you would like to do? I mean, that's probably a goal and a dream at any given point, but I just want to see where you're at and how you're doing it.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought it up, because I also think it's an interesting topic, because in my journey I have pivot a lot, and sometimes it seems like I'm just all over the place, with things, and I'm actually just trying to I do have an academic goal in terms of research. There's certain topics that I want to research related to also biotechnology, more like immunology research, nanomedicine. So that kind of falls between what I studied at UCSD. But for that, I would need to go through a route where I go through a PhD program, and I need to apply for the PhD program at a university, do that, all that funding things right there. But I also have, my own situation where I also want to have like a what is it called, like good finances. So having a PhD just might not work out
Hmm.
my finances. So I'm also trying to satisfy, paying my bills and, paying all those things I need to pay. So for example, with FedEx, when I applied with FedEx, I didn't really had planned to rise with FedEx as much as I have done as of now. It was just more of a financial source, and it just went really really well. So they moved me up, um, but I didn't actually like plan to do that. I thought I was just gonna stay in one spot with FedEx and then eventually get hired somewhere and then just pivot with them. So I've been a little surprised that it's been turned out so well with them. And so the job I was trying to get, it's a clinical lab scientist, and the reason for that is because it provides more financial stability, but it's still within the realm of
Mm,
working in a lab. And then I also have my goals for immigrating, like going to another country. So it kind of just I'm just trying to fulfill that trajectory I have in my head, and so that kind of means I have to do things a little different than what the traditional route is. I have to do something for a specific purpose. Like for example, if I get a master's at another country, if I want to apply for a PhD, it's not like the United States where you can go from bachelor's to PhD. You have to have a master's first, and then you can apply for a
mm,
PhD. Just like in Mexico or Peru or
mm.
Japan or any other countries, most of them you need a master's. So that's kind of fulfilling that purpose of getting a master's. Same with me working with FedEx, just to have a financial source, funding for that master's, because they do financial like a tuition reimbursement for your master's in any field,
Mm.
as long as you provide proof that you had either a loan or paid out of pocket, and then they reimburse you every year, once a year, up to 5,250.
FedEx does that.
Yes, FedEx
Okay,
does that. So
FedEx has that. Okay, okay, that's
yeah,
great. That's great.
yeah,
That's fantastic. So a couple more questions off of that. So
yeah,
staying within your realm, when we met, you were
yeah,
pursuing bioengineering, and I think that's
yeah,
still something that you really want to work in a lab of sorts, right? Doing bioengineering
yeah,
research. But then you
yeah,
did say, FedEx was more of a temp job initially, and you started rising to the ranks. Which congratulations for that, honestly.
yeah,
It's a great company. Seems like it's a good company. And one of the things that you mentioned is maybe one of your goals is to move to another country, which is great. I think FedEx might really have opportunities and options for you to do that. Is that something that you've considered through them? And or are you, because you also went to Japan at one point and you
yes,
worked over there as a student, exchange student, but you were working, I believe, in a lab of sorts. So, which avenue is more appealing to you at this point? The FedEx avenue of working at another office in another country, which is more of a secure, stable job, or leaving FedEx, getting your master's or getting your certification, and then possibly pursuing a job in a lab somewhere else?
yeah, I think I'm glad you mentioned that FedEx route, because that's actually very true. Because FedEx is very global company, so they do have the ability to transfer you to different places, like from city to city, like the way from San Diego to San Francisco, like I did, or from San Francisco maybe to Japan or to Singapore. They do have stations there, and I could just request to transfer, and then I could contact them, and they can transfer me. So that is one option. But I was hoping that I would just apply for a PhD program directly to those countries, and then once I have the
Mm,
PhD program, I would get or once I get that acceptance offer, I would get like some sort of permit with that country, similar to the way I did with Japan, and then with that I could fulfill that PhD for maybe 3, 4, 5 years, whichever long that PhD takes, and then from there, depending on the country, either stay in that country and work, or maybe pivot to another Asian country. Because most likely, I'm thinking Asia, like Japan, Singapore,
mm,
Taiwan, and then just kind of go back to one of the other ones and then work there after that PhD. So that's kind of what I was hoping. And then with that job, it will be something more clinical related. So that's why I also was trying to get a clinical job, because in Asia, working in those type of jobs, they do pay well, but they may not pay as high as the United States. So I wouldn't want to have that burden, that obstacle of, oh, I need more money and I need to go back to the United States. Because I think this going back to the United States, I also learned from that COVID era when we had to go back. It's very hard to just kind of land back in the United States from that point of view, that angle, especially being Latino, coming from immigrant parents, because they they ask, sometimes they ask questions, like for example when I was trying to rent here in San Francisco, even though I'm a US citizen, they ask for certain like things, like they ask like where was I living before, and I lived in Tijuana before too, so I couldn't prove that, okay, I needed a US address. And then
Mm.
and my US address was my family, so I helped them, but I didn't officially have like a, oh, I pay rent with them type of document. So it's as if I was not really present in the United States,
Mm.
even though I'm a US citizen. So it was it was very one of those situations where it was kind of hard to say, okay, I'm from here, even though I've been in California so long. Not even my, I had to kind of say, okay, I was a UCSD student, I lived in campus there. I had to kind of prove all these little proof things, tracing, to really say, okay, I'm allowed to live here. I'm allowed to rent. I don't need a cosigner. And then finding a cosigner in my situation too was kind of difficult. So, those are the little type of obstacles that I had. And so I wouldn't want to have again those obstacles coming back.
Mm.
Okay, here I have a PhD now, but I need more money and I don't want to go to back to the United States. So that's why I want to pivot now to a clinical role that would pay me higher. And then with that, I could save up for me to pay that PhD program completely, because in Asia, the PhD programs are not that expensive. Some of them are only maybe
Mm.
like 80,000 the most, and I can pay 80,000 out of pocket, even if it's out of my own pocket, having
Mm.
saved up. Even though it seems like a lot, but I mean that's a worth of 4 or 5 years. So I think it's okay for me to do that, and then also continue to invest and maybe have some property or something else, in that country. So for me, that's more feasible. So that's kind of what I'm doing. But I know with FedEx, the salary is good, but I want something higher so that it won't take too long for me to have that transition. So that's why I'm going to that clinical role now, so that also helps me with the financial stability for now, and also saving for later for the PhD program and whatever else I'm going to do over there. And it also gives me the clinical experience, because after that PhD, I also want to continue working in some type of clinical lab, and also with patients with diagnosing, but also some type of research branch. And then the research branch is the interesting part, because in countries like Asia, having that research branch is more feasible, I think, for someone like me. Well, here in the US, I feel like it's very difficult to have that research branch. It's like you need to know someone, you need to be okay with the lab, you have to be a good, what is it? A good addition to the team. Sometimes it's like certain there's not a lot of Latinos in this type of topics that I'm kind of interested in. So I feel like that's one of those hurdles for me. It's also you also not just even if you're a good match, it's the funding too. Like finding the funding, you have to apply for a grant. You have to publish a paper. It just the way it's done in the U.S., I just feel like it's not the best match for me, or at least at the very least, it might not be as quick. I feel like if I go to Japan, since I've already learned Japanese, and my Japanese is not perfect, by the way, but it is really advanced for me to work. So having that communication, that network there will have me more quicker. So I'm just more like getting ready for that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is in the US, I have to also satisfy other things, other needs. So that's why it feels like I'm jumping all over the place. Like with FedEx, like I said, like FedEx is just like my source of income, but it's been turning out, good. I've been maximizing it the most because I get the tuition reimbursement. It does take up a lot of my time though, so it is like out there as a big part of my schedule. But I do other things outside of the work. I do get to work with a lot of Latinos at FedEx, so that also is a very it's a very special moment for me, because I get to interact with with them because since I live by myself, I don't have my Latino family members with me here. And then I live in Chinatown. I don't see Latinos here except with either a ship or with our work. So if I didn't have that FedEx, it would be very, a little bit more, less time spent with other, Latino members. And in my classes too, there's not a lot of Latinos. There's only like maybe besides myself, there's like four more or three. So that's why I also kind of stick with FedEx for now, so that I can. It's been meaning really multi-purpose for that, but it's not my where I was planning to stay. I'm trying to say that's what FedEx was the purpose of FedEx, and I just keep going with it. So as much as I can until I have to make that pivot.
I saw Victor. Victor joined us. Victor, the topic for
Yeah.
today, Cafecito Chats, we're talking about bragging without bragging. And you have been doing a lot of research and you've been presenting. You've also had HBAC internship experience. Can you share some of your accomplishments within the last year and a little bit of insight after you actually share some of those accomplishments, a little bit of insight of how can you as an individual brag about yourself or share those accomplishments without bragging about them. So brag about yourself without really bragging. Victor?
That's a hard one. Well,
Yep.
Mr. Good to see you again. I mean, like, I don't have video, but hopefully you can go to hear me. I was a little bit sick, so I'm getting off the the flu that I had. So my voice is not 100%. And good to see you, Ken, as well.
Yeah. Thank
But
you.
it's always hard. I mean, like to talk about yourself and like what you said without bragging, because whenever you're trying to go in and like get an internship, like in my case, right? It's always like, okay, so what should I say? I mean, like uh, people going to can see my LinkedIn or they can go to see my resume, but yeah, it's hard to go and like say that. Hey, you know what? Like you said, in the past year, what I've done a lot of presentations and I've done an internship in HVAC engineering. Now I'm working in IT. I'm in hardware, but right now, the most recent presentation or project, it was with the trying to go in and compete with other students for a spot to present in the Smithsonian National Museum of Space and or Air and Space. I mean, like in Washington. And my team didn't win. It was for the International Space Station. So we couldn't go in and get that slot. It was going to be, I mean, like a lot of other teams in the nation, but at least within the first cohort, we can go advance to the second round. And it's hard to go in and do projects when it's virtual. And the people I was doing the project, I had never met them, so it always like it's hard. But going back to what you were asking, I don't know. It's the imposter syndrome. I still find it hard. I still hold back. I mean, like, hey, you know what? I've done presentations in DC. I did a presentation at a aerospace. I mean, like a cohort. I mean, like, it was the first time that it was held at the local university. I'm in San Antonio, so Texas, the University of Texas San Antonio, and I presented there. So it I never bring out. I mean, like with people that I know. I mean, unless you're in the STEM area, and then I'm also part of it. Like with the community college that I'm part of, I go. I'm an ambassador, so I'm a scholarship, and there's this. I got selected to be an ambassador for the foundation that provides the scholarships. So it's a very small group of students, and we go to events in the city and I have met the mayor. I have met a lot of important people here. So I never bring that up either. But I get to meet a lot of people, and like in the case, I mean, like because of the NASA also, I mean, program I've done, that's how I got to meet you. I know that I've never met in person, but I know that it feels that I haven't met you in person many times because you're a mentor. You had given me advice, and I really appreciate it. Even Ken, I mean, like small messages and on LinkedIn. I mean, like he has given me some advice as well. Mr. Cruz, Ms. Martinez, Leo Soto. I mean, like I got a plethora of people that I mean, that was have never been able to go and meet in person, but I think from the bottom of my heart, because without their advice, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I mean, like, I think the last time that I met with you, I told you that I kind of scaled back. I mean, a little bit, baby steps, because I mean, like, I'm trying to go in and still finish my engineering degree, but I haven't transferred because I still find out that I can go and take classes at a community college and save some money instead of actually me making that move and spend more. So yeah, to me it's hard. I mean, like, to go and say that to say what I've done. I mean, like, the programs that I've been part and even I mean, like, when I know that I've recently reached out to because a friend that I actually met through a NASA program. I mean, like, she's a graduate. I mean, like, she's doing her master's in mechanical engineering, and she just wanted sort of some advice and said, hey, you know what? I mean, like, you're trying to go in and get that job, this person that I know, I mean, might be the person that you need to go and talk to, or if I reach out to, and I felt that I could go to give her your information and connect with her. I mean, like, and that's how I feel. And like, so right now
Yeah.
I'm not at a crossroads, but I'm at a point that I know soon enough I will go to transfer and finish up, and it's just a matter of time. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing all that. You have done a lot, going to Washington D.C., presenting in different symposiums, being an ambassador for your community college, and actually achieving having a scholarship. That's really great. I was talking, and the reason for this topic, how to brag without bragging, it's important. And I think when I brought this topic because I was talking to an executive individual, and the topic came up, and we said, you know what, we don't really showcase our work, showcase our certification, showcase our activities enough to bring awareness. And it goes hand in hand with when you're actually a professional, when you do performance appraisals, when you go to your annual performance review, if you don't have that ability to actually show, quote unquote, brag about what you're doing, your accomplishments to your boss thinks, oh, this individual's doing just enough, doing a great job. They're just part of the company because they're focusing on other areas, they're focusing on other problems. And the topic of how to brag without bragging, I believe it's very important. And I don't have the answer. That's why we're exploring it together, trying to come up with the best response to each one of us. And more than anything, how to brag about yourself without bragging is to have us think, how can I strategically showcase what I am doing so that people not close enough to me or even my peers that don't really know what I'm doing know what I'm actually doing, know my accomplishments, know my certifications. If I can go back to Ken, you've done a lot. And I know that because we've talked. And I'm not saying you bragged about it. I'm just saying that I know who you are and I know your achievements. So, with that being said, Ken, in FedEx, how do you showcase yourself, quote unquote, brag about yourself without bragging to your managers, to your supervisors, to those individuals that have the power to give you more opportunities? Ken?
Yeah, that's a good question too, because actually the vibe, if I can use the word vibe, the vibe in FedEx is very different internally than anything else I have seen, in in other internships in other companies in universities. I actually did not expect this type of vibe. It can be very casual, but at the same time, it can be very at some point strict. Strict meaning that we're working with packages of clients that could have very important information, like their passports, their whatever it may be, even lab samples. very hazardous materials. It could be a lot of different materials, and we don't know what's in the box. We just transport the box. So when I say casual, it means casual when I'm talking to anyone else in the team, no matter their position. It seems very casual. Sometimes I don't even know what their position is, but I just talk to them casually. So this is a very different vibe than I expected. And so when I came in FedEx, I didn't have planned to be noticed. I just wanted to, just like I mentioned, have a source of funding while I do my other things that I didn't really tell FedEx about, like about the labs, about my biotech interest, about my immunology specialty that I'm trying to work at, because they're a little bit unrelated. So, and as you know, sometimes companies say, "Oh, this is not applicable to this field," so they don't need to hear it because it may not be applicable to the everyday purposes. So that's kind of the mindset I kind of had when I was there. But what I did do when I was there is I still tried my very best to meet all my goals. I spoke with everyone with even if it was casual, but with a lot of respect. I did everything I was told. I followed the rules as best as I could. Whenever I made a mistake, I said I'd made a mistake. Whenever I didn't know something, I said I didn't know something. Whenever I needed help, I went to get help. Even when I was feeling uncomfortable, I even said at certain times, "Okay, I feel uncomfortable with this. I need more explanation," or I talked it out. So I had really strong communications, and then that got me noticed several times by different members, and so they were the ones who suggested me to apply to a higher position. Than the one I had coming in, and I only did that because they told me about it. I was not supervising the website to see when stuff was coming out. I did not pay attention to that at all. I just went in, clocked in, started doing my routine, my goals, and then left. And then that's when people just started noticing me, and then I have kept applying to those positions that they told me, just because they told me. And then on the position I put, so recommended by this person who told me about the position to apply, and then the people who interviewed me were the people that I had already seen in my everyday today, so they already kind of know me. So they were more about hiring internally. So FedEx hires internally first before really hiring externally. So that was something that about FedEx as well. So that's what kind of helped me to move up. But again, if I didn't was not told about this from my peers, I would not have probably done it, to be honest. I would just be coming in, coming out, and focusing more on, okay, what's my next research goal for my lab, or like what I still need to learn about my cells so that I can become a better practitioner in the tissue culture and lab. That's kind of what my routine would be. And now it's different. Now I go in, I have more responsibilities. So now my time management is more of a, I need to focus on how much time can I give FedEx, so that because now I'm full time, so I do up to 40 to 45 hours so a week. And I have to help a lot more teams. I have to help more teams of like maybe from 15 to up to 50 people. So now I have to kind of manage my own stuff with the people's inside while I'm working, plus a lot of physical labor. It gets exhausting. I have to kind of manage my diet, my sleep, plus all the other stuff that I have going on. Uh, so yeah, so that's how it happened with me and FedEx, but I didn't expect that. I would normally would maybe do something different if it was maybe a different company, with more intent. Yeah, I guess it was more of a passive upward mobility, I suppose. Yeah,
But
yeah,
but that shows us a great example of
yeah,
bragging about yourself, or showcasing who you are, what you do, your capabilities, your abilities, and the
yeah,
desire to keep moving forward, right? So going
yeah,
over to Victor, for you, I know that you did an internship with an HVAC company, and I know that you're doing a lot of research and a lot of presentations in different symposiums, which is great. It's amazing. But Victor, how did you brag about yourself or showcase that to continue moving forward without really bragging about yourself, but still showcasing it?
I think that
Victor?
right now, I mean, like Ken, I mean, like I do hardware IT for one of the local districts. So there's, I mean, like several districts within the San Antonio metropolitan area, but I work with the oldest, which is the San Antonio Independent School District. And I'm doing something different, even though, I mean, like when I was doing the internship at the HVAC company, I'm working with my hands, and now I'm doing, I mean, like working with my hands, repairing laptops and repairing stuff. And whenever I talk to my manager, I feel that I can go in and do more stuff, and they had given me projects, and I never talk about what I'm an engineering student, because most of the students that are there, they're going for IT. So for me, I mean, like I still haven't found that per se that formula that you're talking about. I'm not gonna go in and brag. I mean, like, because now I see what you just mentioned, right? Whenever it comes to evaluations at work, right? At a full-time job at like a big company, or even a small, and you're within the area of the field, you're still gonna have to do that. So I just haven't found the way of me doing that. Whenever I do talk to when I go to symposiums or presentations and it's people in STEM, it's a little bit easier for me to go and talk about. Or whenever they said, "Hey, what have you done?" Like the question that you just formulated, "What have you done the last year?" And, oh, you know what? I've done this. I mean, like recently, I've done a project for the ISS. I mean, like, and then, oh, really? I mean, like, so opens the conversation. And then I said, hey, you know what? If it's related to aerospace, I mean, like quite a few NASA programs. But if it's related to material science and nanotechnology, then I've done, I mean, like some other presentations. So I guess it all depends on the topic. But I just don't want to go in and like, oh, I've done this, and that, and like, in this area I've done this. I mean, like to me, it's kind of overwhelming, and I don't want to go in and like get to that point. I touch a little bit of what I've done. If the person asks, hey, you know what? Or if they connect with me on LinkedIn, great. But I've noticed a lot too that even when I make connections with people that I have met, it doesn't go. I mean, like a lot of people, and I do the same, and I don't know if you do the same. If it's maybe if you're, I don't know, Mr. Herrera, if you're trying to go and hire this person at your company, you go more in depth onto what they have. I mean, like on their LinkedIn, and then scroll further. But I think like people, they don't scroll further past my name and my main accomplishments, and then after that, they just don't go to the post, or they don't go, and then like they just say, oh yeah, nice to meet you. I always make I always send a message when I connect with somebody. Hey, thank you for accepting my invitation to connect. It was great to meet you at the dinner or the event. I really appreciate the advice. I mean, the support, and then that's it. And then they reply back. Some of them they don't. So I don't know. It's hard. I was thinking of a friend of mine told me to go in and do a website and put all the different tiers, say presentations, lab research, internships, and that way, I mean, like, whenever you put it on a resume, if they go to the website, that will go and show more of what you've done compared to the LinkedIn, because sometimes the link, like I said, the LinkedIn past your name and your story or your brief, I mean, like synopsis, people won't go over that.
Yeah. No. And the reason for this topic is not to have you brag about yourself, right? Is to, as you indicated there, Victor, is to allow you to think, oh, I do have to showcase what I do. It could be within the job, within my discipline, outside my job. And this goes really hand in hand with what you said. In LinkedIn, you could have various posts, you could have your hobbies, you could have what you do and what you focus on. But sometimes people don't necessarily go and dig deeper, because a post from 2, 3 years ago might not resurface unless I actually go in and scroll down past some of your posts. So one of the things that I suggest is, yes, do the website, put it on your LinkedIn, advertise it whenever people ask, hey, can I connect with you? Do have it on your LinkedIn, but also have a QR code or have a GitHub page and showcase that to individuals and say, if you really want to know more about what I do as far as STEM comes, here's a portfolio of what I've done and some of my achievements, accomplishments. you're not necessarily bragging, but you're letting them know, if you really want to know, dig into this, right? And it's up to them to look at it. Also showcase it in your resume, refresh and freshen up your resume. Maybe every 6 months, if you do more and more presentations. For example, you, Victor, talk about your DC experience, showcase what you did, research that you did. Pretty sure that right now, because you're working with a lot of hardware and IT refreshment on computers, go ahead and put that in there. What does that teach you? How many computers are you actually repairing? What do the computers serve as far as the purpose? Is this a nonprofit organization, for-profit organization? Tell me a little more about that in your resume, right? That's part of your job. For Ken, since you're actually pursuing a pharmaceutical or lab environment, research environment, go ahead and say, hey, I'm actually pursuing in work a certification, and indicate what that certification is, right? And if there's a little bit of research that you've done, performed, that goes hand in hand with that particular certification, go ahead and list it in some of the bullet points. So that way people know, oh, this is what he's doing. And same to you in LinkedIn. If you can say, hey, I've achieved this certification, and add a little sentence or a little paragraph saying, this is getting me closer to my goal, indicate what your goal is, right? Once again, you're working for FedEx at the moment. FedEx is a great company. You seem to be happy with the treatment, with the employment, with everything. However, you realize that there's a goal that I want to pursue. Obviously, you don't want to say, hey, I don't really want to work for FedEx anymore. I love the company, but I really want to pursue a different goal. Nothing wrong with that. So tell FedEx, this is what or at least in the conversation, your management, tell them, I really love working here. However, one of my lifetime goals has always been to be a bioengineer, nano engineer, whatever it is, right? And these are some of the things that I've been doing. This is some of these certifications that I'm
Mm-hmm.
pursuing. Who knows? They might actually have some contacts. They might actually have some labs themselves. And it would be really crazy if they actually had labs that allowed you to pursue that particular passion. And you never know what availability they might actually have, instead of you just saying, I'm going to stop working for you flat out because I'm going to pursue something else. There might be opportunities and doors that can get open in that regard. So this is why I brought the topic, bragging about yourself without really bragging about yourself. Not to tell you brag about yourself, but to get you thinking, bringing awareness of, how can I actually showcase some of the achievements, some of the things that I've done, to be able to climb up the step ladder in the corporate ladder, to be able to achieve a higher position, and to be able to ultimately pursue my dreams and goals if that's what I want to do. That's what this topic is ultimately about, to keep mobility forward on each of our personal careers. So to close it out, any closing words, Kevin, Ken, any closing thoughts, insights?
Yeah, I would just want to add that I agree with what you're saying, and some of that I already have some conversations, along those thoughts with some members in FedEx, and I think so. I think what I want to add is having a good communication in your everyday work zone, wherever that may be, will always be a good thing, so that you can have that transition, whether for one position to another or from one company to another company, so that that transition goes smoothly rather than having obstacles that are unnecessary. So having good communication, I think, is also key. And Ship can help with that as well with all our workshops, right? Of course. Yeah.
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you, Ken. That's great insight, great advice.
Yeah.
Victor, any final thoughts, any final insights from you, sir?
I think that Ken said something to me like that resonated. Sometimes I mean like of all the things that he does right for FedEx, and I think that most of those they can go and translate, even though it's not on the realm of the nanotechnology, right, or the bio, I mean like side of the research. You're
Mm.
still doing. I mean like, hey, you're being responsible, showing up. I mean like I'm sure you do reports. That's part of. I mean like when I was doing. I mean like that. when I did that engineering internship, it's like people still do meetings, reports, and it's aside of being in a lab because I have been in a lab too, and that's I mean like that's the other side that if you have those skills, that can go to like propel you even further. I mean, like, because now they can go and say, you know what, maybe he can goes to go and work for like a big lab or like he said in Japan, where some he knows the language, he knows English, he can go in and you know what, we need somebody to go in and go and present. Now he can go in and do that presentation. He can go and write the report. He knows the ins and outs of the research. So that's to me, that's great. One professor I remember, he told me, "Hey, you know what? I don't have that many community colleges that the community college students that do what you have done. You know, you've done presentations, you've done the research, you've done an internship. A lot of even students that I have in a 4 year, like they don't even do that until they're seniors. So you have a leg up, and I guess for what you said, I need to go and leverage that, and like you said, QR code, have some other means for me to go and put myself out there without, like you said, bragging. And it has been great. I mean, the journey has been great so far, and I know what my goal is. I know that probably is not going to be like in Ken. I mean, like he's doing FedEx, I'm doing IT. Probably that's not going to be my end goal, but at least I'm doing something and working with some people and working with my hands, writing reports, doing some projects, and that should show up maybe like later in the future if I know how to word it right or put it right in my resume or LinkedIn or GitHub or a website.
Thank you, Victor. And that's the objective of this topic: how to brag about yourself without bragging. Is getting you to think about and being aware of how to elevate yourself and showcase your achievements and your accomplishments so that others who are not close to you, that don't know you, are aware and become aware of what you are and what value you bring to the table. So I hope that this topic brings that awareness, and at least it gets us moving a little closer to achieving our goals, sharing our goals with others that can help us continue moving forward. So with that, thank you for joining Cafecito Chats. We'll see you next Wednesday. Hasta luego. Bye bye.
Have a good one.
Pero gracias.
Appreciate it.